You spend half of your life as a musician on stage,
Oh my God.
uh, and like throngs of people yelling at you and having this like amazing communal experience. And now it's like the chance of that happening is kind of dim at the moment.
Yeah.
What does that do to your like mental state? Are you having like
Um, it's interesting because people have asked that, and it's not something that I really think about or need,
okay.
like we don't do this and play because it's something like I need to be on stage with a crowd. I need these things. We don't. We're almost shy about the whole thing. We almost kind of a little bit embarrassed, like, sorry, this just comes with it. But we really enjoy it. And it's such a meditative experience for somebody like me. It's so focused, present tense focus. And once it's gone, it's sort of gone. And at the moment is really when I sort of think about it. But honestly, right now, I haven't really thought too much about when I could get back to doing that because I've just been so busy trying to figure out everything else.
Right.
I mean, like the one thing in my mind is like, when can I get on stage?
No, I feel like getting on stage means that the whole thing is getting back in motion
Yeah.
again, and so that's what it represents.
It's interesting because the last couple of times we were on stage, we were starting to feel this thing approaching. We were in New York and we were in New Orleans. When we did the second half of our tour, we could feel this sort of energy happening. And there was so much miscommunication and so many people wanting to say this and that and all that stuff. When people start saying misinformation, really hurts people. Nobody really knows how to do it. And got to the point where it was sort of up to us to pull a plug, and we could just feel it. Like, this is getting wrong. This is really dangerous, And even I remember we were in Knoxville finally, and we were a part of a debate between people who were running the government there. And one person really wanted us to not cancel. I was very upset. And the other person was begging us to do it. And the club people were like, oh, we don't know what's happening. And we just sort of said, we're pulling it. Like, there's no way.
That's tough.
And then flew home. And then it was just like a different world.
You have a lot of people that depend on you, though, for safety, for income, for all of these things. So, I know you don't take that stuff lightly, pulling the plug.
Yeah. Well, whoever would have been upset about us not playing we're pretty sure that they would eventually be happy we didn't.
Right. Right.
I mean, it just seemed wild.
Let's talk about something happy because, radio.
I was happy. I was thrilled with all that stuff. I love that stuff. It's so fun.
Radio has turned 100 years old. I can't
Wait,
believe it. I've been working in it all that time,
yes.
For an entire 100 years, and we're celebrating that. And so we're just asking artists.
I'm convinced you will be the owner of radio.
We're asking our favorite artists who are here on the EC Radio Soundspace Sundays, like what the impact of radio has on you and like what it's had on your life.
Radio is so important because it's something that almost accidentally gets into your skull. You know what I mean? Like, I think about that all the time with my son, who's 5, and if we watch something, it almost has to be curated, because it comes into your universe by choice. He doesn't just sort of flip through something and accidentally get turned on to Sesame Street.
Right.
Sesame Street has to be specific unless somebody else is watching it. And I think about all the sort of accidental loves that happen because you just had radio on, and radio, especially when I was younger, makes you less lonely, and it was just something organic and alive was happening. And no matter what you do with playlists and things like that, it's still you touching it. But when you get this sort of feeling of an other coming in and turning you on to things that you almost just find out through osmosis, you just hear a song and you stop. And I remember that being the most important thing. And I think that's still really, really important to kind of let other people take control and curate a little bit for you,
Well, I think people have that
Mixtape
moment.
happens all the time.
People have had that moment with your music, you know, like they've stopped and been like, and
Yeah.
that you've been a discovery. So
And
that's,
I apologize to everyone for that. It was not on purpose, or was it?
I am damn happy about that. Let's talk about your Martika cover. You know, was
Yeah.
like Stacey Q busy? Like you couldn't cover Stacey Q? What's going on, Brian?
Yeah, she did a cease and desist. And then she Lee was like, fuck you.
Lisa Cult Jam are like,
No, she was on board. But yeah, but she was a little too on board.
gotcha.
Yeah, it is. We're not really a covers kind of band, or I don't really think about covers very much, you know. And this song, we had a fake band in our house that consisted of my wife Tracy and I, and then our friend Sarah. Remember Sarah Negadari, Happy Hollows, who
Yes, of course.
and Hanford, of course, our good friend Hanford, just some friends over, and every time we come over, we would just get a little tipsy and pretend we were a band called the Suppressive Persons, because I think we just saw the Scientology documentary. And we would play songs on in the house and pretend to reenact them. And Toy Soldiers was a big hit. And we would always like pretend to do that. And Nucleus, Jam on It, which everybody should be very thrilled that we didn't do that cover.
You know what? I love you. I love all of you in that fake suppressive person group, but
yeah.
I'm really happy you.
Well, you know, the first thing when we were going to do this cover, when we were going to release it, because we did it as a sort of a thing that would be fun, work with Butch. It kind of came up separately from different people, and we thought we should really attempt this, even though we thought I don't know how, you know, because I really do like that song. And I thought, well, why then do it, you know? And then it was just almost like a challenge to see if we could try and replicate a certain emotional tonality in it. You know, there's something in that song that just oozes, at least to me. And we wanted to see what would happen if we attached a certain musicality to it, and if we can kind of keep that
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what we were doing, and we didn't really know what we were going to do with it, and then we decided to to put it out, especially for times like this, not knowing what it would be what it is.
So you did this cover back when you were recording with Butch in those
after we did it in January, I believe, of this year, which again seems so long ago.
I know.
And we just kind of were having fun with it, you know, and in turn it made it very not fun, because immediately just like, what are we doing? How am I going to do this? At first I was so locked on to the way the song moved and the way the key was, and I didn't want to change anything, and I would try and sing it like her. And eventually I think Joe, my keyboard player, said, dude, I know you're trying, but you can't compete with a 19-year-old girl who sings this song. I was trying, I was like,
yeah. Joe is right.
Yeah. And so we changed keys and we worked a lot of stuff, and we wiped out a lot of the musical sort of things, and then found that the song, it's funny when you hear these songs, especially when they're, I guess, designed to be really popular songs, but in that there's some very, you recognize the almost intelligent things that happen in it when you break it down. Like there's just certain chords that just seem like, wow, this is really strange that this is in this when you sort of look at it.
And that's fun for you on that end.
It was fun, and it was almost like, what are we doing?
Let's talk about your 80s movie nights. What's going on with those?
I don't know. I don't know who set that up, but it ended up being kind of fun, which is actually good timing, because I set up a screen in my backyard we sort of had to build a little quarantine network.
Uh-huh.
I have a 5-year-old son, and like, he has to see a certain amount of friends. So we have this little network. And we've been doing those on the weekends in the backyard of our house. And we just watched E.T., which terrified my child.
Oh no!
Yeah, hold on one second. I'll show you something.
Oh no! That's so sad.
So, well, it terrified him like it terrified all of us, right? But I gave him this. This is a 1982 doll that I had in the garage. It smells really bad.
Oh my God, that's an original E.T. like stuffed alien.
I asked him if I wanted to paint the eyes back, and he said no. So now he owns this doll, which when I was a little kid was my best friend.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And what an amazing thing to pass on to your son. Throw that thing in the wash.
I have done everything I can to do it. And I've even looked up online if an old doll will kill your child.
I love ET so much. So what do you, and you've been bringing in people because I've seen you, posting on socials about joining, people can join you for this 80s.
Oh yeah. Nikki and I did one about Purple Rain, which is a very interesting movie to look back at.
Yes, it is. There's a lot of darkness in that movie.
It is amazing, and it's massively problematic in so many levels that it's almost shocking.
But you know what? That moment when it is Prince, is it that moment where they're finally doing the Wendy and Lisa song "Purple Rain."
Yeah.
And
Wendy and Lisa are clutch. They are the most important player, and Morris Day is pretty important.
Of course. And then but when Prince kisses her on the cheek and she has this look on her face finally you did my song, finally, and it's working and it's so amazing, I'm a mess.
There's two things that are interesting. It's interesting that he would have put himself, which is fascinating, that he puts himself as a villain in the movie in a way.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing because most people have such egos, and I can't imagine Axl Rose or anybody that's doing that. It's like he is a problem and he's pissing off his band, he's pissing off the club. The other thing that's funny is that throughout the movie, he's playing the best songs you've ever heard in your life. And they're like, what happened up there, kid? He plays beautiful ones. They're like, man, you're blowing it. You better score. And we're just like, if we walked into Spaceland in 2002 and saw that, we'd all throw our instruments down. Just been like, we saw, or the time. If the time showed up in residency at Spaceland, we would have been like, that's it.
I would kill to see Jerome holding the mirror in front of Morris Day right now. If I could be around people, that would be a moment I'd want to be around at the moment.
Morris Day, his comedy actually works.
Well, I love it. Let's, you brought it up. Let's talk about Spaceland /Satellites to end on a bummer note. But, that was a place that, recently they decided to pull the plug on live shows because of the times we're living in. I can't imagine what it's like owning a venue. Yeah. But, that's a place that both you and I have made so many friends, including, I think I saw you, doing the Pikel EP, way back.
Yeah, you were there. You were there all the time. You were part of our, that sitcom that would have been that time.
So much drama at all these corners, And
it was a wild scene sitting there with those in the smoking room.
Oh, the parabolic mics overhead that everybody could hear.
Really, I was like, I've never heard so many dudes say so many gross things to people.
Yeah.
It was really amazing, almost and sometimes I try to chime in, basically to what we're talking about. To the people at home were riveted. They had these in this room. They had these satellites up there, and what happened is if you're sitting on one side, you could hear the conversation because the sound that would bounce over. So you'd hear people talking from across the room, and you just hear some really insane stuff. And I would try to chime in, once in a while. The guy would be like, "Hey, you know what my band is?" And I would go, "No, I don't have any idea."
It always amazed me, because we're audio people, so I picked up on it the very first time they went in there. But the amount of people who never ever knew,
totally,
people could hear what you were saying, even if you're whispering. The mic is picking it up and sending it across the room.
The cathedrals, the whispering domes, it's the same sort of thing. And you're right. How do they not hear us talking when we really hear them very, very well?
Well, it's a strange time, and I think in these times when it's absolute madness. I go through waves, and I'm sure you do, of complete, up and down and trying to be positive, and all is lost. But at the end of the day, I always, always, always go back to music.
Yeah, that's
like
good.
manipulate my mood. You know, it really is at this point. That's what it is. It's a medicinal manipulation, and music does that. And so, you know, your band is one of my favorites. So thank you for,
Oh,
you know,
you're one of our
broadcast this performance from the HD Radio Soundspace today.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's so much isolation and stuff bringing it full circle, like when you were really young and you sort of feel alone, and then music keeps you company, you know, almost to a point of you're shocked. Like I remember first going to a PJ Harvey show, and I was almost shocked that there was 1,000 other people that liked her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what is this? It's almost weird at first because it's so personal. It's you in your room playing along to Dry, her record or something like that. And maybe a couple of your friends, but when you get into that whole concert, it's almost shocking. There's so many people also taking ownership of it. But I think that's important, and I think that's important right now. Music is probably very healing now. And
It's
I think
very comforting to know that.
Yeah, I think people have spent a lot of time, including myself, like there's such a massive amount of music that you haven't heard, you know, in the past. I think there's a lot of spelunking going on, a lot of like finding out about things in the past and in hearing those sort of things. And I think that brings a lot of comfort.
You bring a lot of comfort, Brian.
I've never heard that before.
Thank you for joining us on the KROQ HD Radio Soundspace Sundays. Tell Nikki and Joe and Christopher we all said hello.
Hey guys, they said hi.
Lazy bums. I'm Kat Corbett. Thanks for watching and listening to KROQ HD Radio Soundspace Sundays.